probably wait another minute. Welcome everyone who's just joining us. We might get started, and those that are still joining us, because we had overwhelming demand for tonight, which is amazing, a topic very close to my heart, and obviously Thomas, who's joining us. So firstly, a big welcome. My name is Emily Casca. I'm the very proud CEO here at Playgroup New South Wales. I've been on board since the end of last year. And for us, really one of the biggest things I think I've said at Playgroup New South Wales since I came was like, I love who's coming to Playgroup, and I know many of you are online tonight, but something that I'm really passionate about is who's not coming. And even if you're not able to come to a playgroup, how can we support you to play a key role in those first 2,000 days? And not surprisingly, dads is one of those groups that we would love to see more actively involved, and dads tell us that themselves. And don't get me wrong, I'm a mum myself. Parenting is amazing. Parenting is also very challenging. I've just walked in the door from work myself. As you can see behind me, I tripped over a Nerf gun, so I was just picking up those. Boy, mum life. So I get it. So thank you all for joining us on a night. For those of you with particularly young children, I know that this is the beloved witching hour, so maybe it is nice to step away from your children in this time. But I'm thrilled to be joined tonight by Thomas Stocking, the CEO of Dad's Group and founder of Man with a Pram. I just love that name. And what I love about it is, Thomas, I think you do epitomise real talk, real tools, real connection. So what we wanted tonight was to get really practical, not too much of the fluffy stuff, about how dads play a key role in the first 2,000 days. And also throughout this, you're welcome to add comments and things in the chat. Before we do kick off, as always, we have a range of amazing services particularly for Aboriginal children and families, and I want to pay my respects to everyone joining us tonight from the countries that you're on. At Playgroup New South Wales, we are so proud to carry through the traditions of play, storytelling, connection to family, country and culture, and we're so grateful to do that on Aboriginal lands, once was and absolutely always will be Aboriginal lands. Introducing our speakers, I kind of already skipped to this without coming to the slide. So we've got Thomas joining us, and he'll certainly give us a background on him. You don't need my bio. I'm Emily, I'm a mum. I love what I do, and I also have a background in the disability space, which is another really key cohort for us. Parenting is certainly challenging and glorious for us all, but when there is that overlay of disability, there are some other considerations we need to make as well. So a super quick bit about Playgroup New South Wales, because you're not really here to listen to me, but like I said, many of you do come to our services, a number of you don't. So we've been around for just over 50 years, and we run a whopping 600 playgroups every single week across the state. And we also have peer support groups, so groups just for parents, particularly for parents of children with a disability, to create that safe space. What I love about what we do is we are place-based, we're in local communities, we're for community, we're by community. Play itself, a lot of people don't know, is an evidence-based model. It does enhance child development. But I think what strikes me about the playgroup model is it's one of the only real spaces in those early years where it's co-participation, where the parent and the child are together. And we know that that's such a powerful space, especially in those blurry early days. Essentially, what this very busy slide is telling you is that we have lots of playgroups for everyone. We also have lots of grandparent playgroups. We know a lot of us as young parents are getting back into the workforce earlier sometimes than we might like because of good old cost of living. And we're finding that a lot of grandparents are playing a caring role. And so we've got some really strong grandparent playgroups as well. But what you will see on here, and also what is so specific to tonight, is that we do have dad-specific playgroups. Now, I'll admit, not as many as I would like, and it's definitely a focus area for us. But we do know that carving out trusted spaces for dads to connect is really important, and it's a growing priority for us. So I would love feedback too on what can we at Playgroup New South Wales do to better support dads in playgroups, capacity building, workshops like this. What do you want? I am absolutely all ears.
Where's my kid?
The other bit before we kick over to Thomas is earlier this year, we're really proud. We've got a 10-year partnership with Lego this year. And so we commissioned some research that we put out in March this year as part of National Playgroup Week, and it was called the Big Start Report. And we researched over 1,000 parents in a relatively short space just to see what does modern parenting look like, how is it out there in the land of parenting. And particularly to dads, it wasn't all doom and gloom. What was awesome to see is that dads are spending a considerable amount of time playing with their toddlers, 13 hours a week on average of those that were surveyed, but obviously notably less than mums who were sitting at about the 18 hours a week. There was also a bit of a gap in the daily engagement, so a higher proportion of dads are missing out on that daily playtime compared to mums, about 15% compared to the 9%. Self-doubt, something I think that we all have as parents. I honestly say I'm still just winging it. Maybe as the CEO of Playgroup New South Wales, I shouldn't say that. But again, I think we saw in this survey that all parents feel, but particularly dads, about what is their contribution to playtime, and particularly some feedback there about free playtime where it's not structured, and how can dads really contribute to that, almost double the proportion of mums. And also, I think, again, for all of us, that sort of stress and exhaustion versus how do we create that dedicated focus time with our kids, particularly those of you on this call that have multiple kids to juggle: work, life, family, friends, all of those things, and of course your own well-being. 45% of dads reported more stress and exhaustion as barriers to being able to find that focus time to play with their kids, and I'm sure that's something a lot of you can relate to. So with this report, it's been really good insights. We're working with Lego and with amazing organisations now, like Thomas's Man with a Pram, of, okay, we know what the data is telling us and we talk to dads every day. What can we do about it? And this webinar is one of the many things we're going to do to support dads. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Thomas. Very excited.
Thanks, Emily, and thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm going to acknowledge the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi people where I'm from, which is up in the Sunshine Coast, before I start, and acknowledge the elders past and present, but also acknowledge the babies that have been born on that land, and the babies that are going to be born on that land. We like to do that in Dad's group just to keep that that focus on, you know, as fathers, we are somewhat identified by the fact that there is a little baby in our lives, or there has been a baby in our lives, which is a cool thing to do. Now, Paris, with these slides, I do not have anything in front of me. I'm sorry. Would you be able to start the slides for me? But tonight we're going to be, well, I've been invited to speak about the modern dad redefining fatherhood. For me, firstly, apologise that I'm overdressed in Canberra for meetings, and I don't usually look like this. I'm more likely to have board shorts on and a checkered shirt to make it look like I'm actually in a suit. So it's a different night for me. But I was sharing before that fundamentally the most of the sessions that we do, and Emily touched on that, is around really being interactive, connecting, being real, and being human, which again doesn't really present itself well when I'm overdressed like this. But let's just pretend that we're all, you know, in our jammies and having a yarn about parenthood and fatherhood. My goal tonight is to demonstrate that the process of getting better in these places and spaces is connection with humans, having human to human relationships, and working through some of the exciting opportunities there are in fatherhood, but also some of the challenges as well. The reason why I do this work, or I'm passionate about this work, is because we've seen some of the challenges that fathers have faced my own challenges, and through my own lived experience and connecting with my wife Kate, we've been able to design and co-design support programs that really, we believe, build a safer environment for children to grow and be nurtured in, but also a safe environment for us as adults to acknowledge that we're not always the best version of ourselves. That's an interesting one, because in the pursuit of being the best version of ourselves, we always find something that, you know, aspects of who we are that we're not proud of. And I think being able to create safe space for that means we can grow beyond those things. And Dad's Group do a lot of that work. And that work is not deeply complex, but it's we like to think it as starting a journey. So I mentioned interactivity. If any of you are online and you can unmute and tell me where you're from. I know it's very scary to do that in, you know, amongst people you don't necessarily know, but if there's a dad or there's a mum out there, I'd love to hear from you, and just share where you're from. You're a parent of one or two children. I'd really love to interact with you just at the start, so we can get a bit of a feel for who we're talking to, and what kind of, you know, places you're from, which is just an exciting way to connect. So anyone, thank you, Andrew, legend. Thank you very much.
No,
Kick us off.
no worries. So I'm Andrew. I'm originally from Canada. I've been in Sydney and mostly on the Lower North Shore for the past 8 years. And I have a single child, a daughter who's just under 4.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing. That's an exciting age. There's lots of learning and neuroplasticity development happening in the backs of their brains and inside their brains and in their bodies and in their hearts. So I'm glad that you're fostering that connection there. Is there someone else who can share?
Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. I'm a nana.
Awesome.
I had 3 grandsons under the age of 23 months, and
Oh,
I'm the mother of the 2 fathers. So it's
wow.
very interesting to see because I was a stay-at-home mum 34
Right.
years ago, never had to go back to work, had a corporate life, but decided to give that all away. And my family are very corporate people, and it's very challenging for me to see the difference in how these children are being brought up in the 21st century.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Alexandra. That's really cool. And one of the things that we're really excited to do in the Dads Group space, our organization really champions that intergenerational parenting. So that piece around getting grandparents involved. My dad's actually meeting me here in Canberra to do our talk at Parliament House tomorrow, which is really exciting to demonstrate that the role of fathers and grandfathers or mothers and grandmothers is really significant in many ways. We've moved away from that traditional village of a village that raised a child, and now we have to piece together like a jigsaw puzzle a village for our children in our cellular lives that are all, discombobulated in many respects. So thanks, Alexander. Really appreciate you
To
sharing.
add to that, my mother died when my youngest child was 10 months old, so I had no village when I was growing up as well. So hence, I really want to be a full-on, hands-on nana to my grandchildren, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and that's really, really, really thank you for sharing that. We acknowledge the vulnerability in sharing that, and that's a big piece of what we do is come with our vulnerable selves and work and share our stories because we know. Well, I grew up in an Aboriginal community in Arnhem Land, and I know that sitting around and having a yarn together about some of those vulnerable pieces really helps us to connect, not to pursue perfection, but as Maggie Dent would say, to do really reasonably good parenting, and that's what we're aiming for. So, is there anyone else that would like to share where they're from?
G'day, Trent here.
Hey, Trent.
How you going? Good. Yeah, I'm from Sydney. I've got 2 beautiful little daughters, 2 and 4, and they're out there watching Bluey right now. So I'm expecting them to run in and jump all over me at any point right now. But so far, so good.
Awesome. What episode is it, Trent? I bet you.
Yeah, it's one's on their way.
Oh,
You want to say hi? Hey?
Oh, hello.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, as expected. Yeah, what's Dad doing? Something exciting. We better go join him. So, thanks so much.
Thanks, Trent. I'll give one last opportunity if there's anyone else that wants to share. But really, thank you. I really appreciate connecting with the people who we're speaking with, and that human connection is a real big part of the process of learning. If there's no one else, I can't see everyone's hands, but if there's no one else, we'll move on. The next slide is sharing a little video, and I'd love to see where that video works. It's captures. It's a video from a few years ago, but it captures what Dad's Group's about, and really intends to demonstrate, I guess, the benefits of fathers getting together through showing strength-based approach to fatherhood. Thanks, Paris.
Dad's Group started because I realised I had no idea about how to dad. So I actually connected with some of my mates who were already dads with their babies, and we, I guess, started what was our first Dad's Group unofficially.
Dads in the community, we come together, have coffee, talk about the challenges of what it's like being a dad.
I think to talk to your mates who don't have kids about your kid, they could probably find it a bit dull. But for you, it's so exciting, it's such a special place in your heart, so it's nice to relate to people in a similar sort of situation.
As dads, we're meant to be the tough one. For us to feel that we're struggling at home, that's always hard to talk about.
some of the things I talk to the guys about, I couldn't talk to my wife about. It's the male nature. We don't want our wives to know that we're struggling and suffering and whatnot.
When you get around other dads who are, you know, going through the same thing, it's great to just know that there's other people in the same situation.
Thanks, Paris. And the next slide there is really talking around the evolution of fatherhood. And I think it's really powerful to acknowledge that fatherhood and motherhood is changing, and it changes over time. I'm not sure exactly how accurate this demonstration or this timeline is here, but regardless, the concept of it is that, you know, the way in which we travel through the decades, the way in which we do parenting does shift, and we learn different things, and, you know, what we hope that we can build on the strengths of the last generation and leave some of the stuff that wasn't really helpful behind. But at the same time, as you probably have discovered in your own personal self journey, that what you thought you knew as a 20-year-old and what you now know as a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old, you realize there's probably gaps in what I'm delivering as a 40-year-old I'll realize when I'm 60. So I think the point of this and the learning is that being able to connect together and share and grow together, but also take some of the great learnings from the elders in our community and apply that into the lives of our children. And one thing I often think about as a father, I look at the grandparents of my children, and I look at the slow pace in which they're able to live, and I just think of you, Alexandra, you know, in your pursuit of, you know, being so passionate about doing a great job. And I just think, as a father, I'm actually now reframing myself to try to have the behaviors that a grandparent would, like when the glass falls over and smashes, rather than act like a dad, which to me would be, oh, what have you done? It's now moving towards, oh, that's all right, that's just another thing. So I think, you know, there's lots of different ways we can frame things for ourselves, but the understanding what the role is of a dad compared to what it could be is something to really, I guess, slow down and reflect on, and have a talk about that with your partner or with your, you know, your group of trusted friends as well. So today, I guess we've, you know, somewhat shifted towards that a diverse family structure. However, the leftover kind of sentiment of being the breadwinner, I'd definitely say hasn't disappeared entirely. In fact, in some ways for fathers, we are seeing that there's both, there's a commitment to both, or lots of different things there, rather than say my role switched to this. We actually now need to do that and that. I think that's quite similar for mothers as well. So essentially, we're all under more pressure to do more things all the time. And I think part of what we attempt to do is build safe, fun, enjoyable places where we can slow down and accept that the way in which we do things is not necessarily going to be perfect, but we can learn from each other. And one of the stories I often share is at Dad's Group, I really watched one of my other Dad's Group members, who was my brother-in-law, connect with some of the kids. And the way he connected with them was really, really cool. And it was different to the way I connected with kids. And I have learnt through that lived experience, or that life application, I guess, of how I connect and how he connects with kids. And I've moved more towards that way and that learning, so to speak. So I think in community, we learn a lot of things, not necessarily through education in its traditional forms, but through I guess experiential learning situations. And that's what, you know, I'm preaching to the converted in playgroups, because that's exactly what playgroups is all about, which is really exciting. Now we're taking a fatherhood lens to it, which is looking at how we can make what may have traditionally been seen as a mother's role in that caring space, and break down those stereotypes and say, is that how we want it to be as a family? And then talk through those decisions together. And then, you know, in mine and Kate's scenario 10 years ago, there wasn't Dad's Groups, and the short childcare spaces and maternity spaces and antenatal classes, fathers were somewhat overlooked in that space. And for us, making a step forward was doing something about it, and then seeing whether that was something that could become one day a population level program, and that program would be able to include fathers. I'm just going to jump to the next slide, if that's all right. Some of the key things that I wanted to highlight today was finding your own rhythm. When I share that, I think that some of the key things that you have, your own family has its own culture, and your community has its own culture. So finding and developing and being intentional about that your own culture is a real powerful opportunity. And again, many of you might already know this and do this, but it's encouraging those behaviors around identifying what you want, your plan for your family or your community. And I think some of the learnings that I've had is when Kate and I have sat down and said, oh, we want to be more intentional about these types of friendships with these types of people. And we've then spent the next 6 months investing in that direction. So we stop and reflect on what we don't have and what we want in terms of, connecting with families and support. And then we invest in that direction. It's long and it's slow work, but then after 6 or 12 months, we look back and we go, yeah, that investment was really good. So part of that, one example from years ago was, and this really speaks to this slide, which is around balancing work and parenting, is that notion that we're always too busy, and you switch off after this, and then reality hits and you're in your mess. For us, the mess was constant and it wasn't going to go away. And to connect with our kids when the house was clean wasn't really a reality. So we invented 5 minutes of fun. And that was for our little culture and our little family, 5 minutes of fun. So what meeting is so important that you can't stop for 5 minutes of fun? Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And I think that's been a benefit to our kids, that we stop for 5 minutes of fun. And then they get used to being able to access us for those 5 minutes. They're tiny, simple things. They may or may not make a difference to your life, but they certainly make a big difference to the children's life. And then it helps us as parents to slow down. I think the other key thing around identity is really complex. And I think that's one that I love to dive into, is the identity of, transition to a mother or transition to a father, and what does that actually mean? And where does that identity come from, and how do you want to define that as a father? I'm just going to stop there and see if any of the dads out there have any reflections on their identity. So transitioning from a dude to a dad. Completely understand if you don't want to share, but often our identity is shaped by our own lived experience or how our parents parented us, but then how we want to parent our children is often slightly different or quite largely different. And then we learn from various role models, through whether it be books, television, movies, or actual neighbors and friends that we know and relatives. I'd love to have someone share, and it doesn't matter if it's a mum or a dad. I'd love some mums to share. But that transition to identity and that reflection. Have you ever reflected on how you've changed and the impact on that for your child? Is there anyone brave enough to share? No, that's all right. Well, how about we move to self-care, because something that's maybe someone can give us an example of self-care. It's quite an easy one to share. Some of the things that we've in Kate and my experience has identified is that in the early years we found self-care really complex and difficult. It was unnecessarily difficult. We felt the obligation to do more things all the time, until we kind of burn out and fall in a heap, was seen as the right thing to do. However, as we've now have 3 children, burnout actually costs a lot more than you'd think it does, and so slowing down and doing self-care. Great idea. Pop in self-care examples and the tips there if you're able to. That would be wonderful. If someone wants to share about what they do for self-care, that would be great as well. I think sometimes we think of self-care as this complex thing, but really it's remembering who you are and what you like doing, and actually going and doing some of those things and enjoying it without any guilt. that last part without any guilt can be quite complex for us. Certainly was for me and is for me. But I have found a little secret life hack for the guilt, and that is having a calendarized booked time each week. And it depends on the life stage of your children. I get that. But for now that our kids are 11, 8, turning 9 on the weekend, and 6, I now have a night a week where I can do whatever I want guilt-free, and Kate has a night a week she can do whatever she wants guilt-free. I understand that might be an hour for some couples, depending on where you're at, or for some families. However, that self-care piece where we actually say there's no guilt, do whatever you want, that's fun. And then all of a sudden it's this time that we start to look forward to. It's our special time to hang out with a friend or read a book without any judgment. But we found that with the constant demands of children and pressure, those things didn't really naturally happen. So again, we had to be intentional about it. My husband found bike riding after he became a dad, now shares the passion with our son. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do know other dads who have done similar things. They've taken up different types of activities that they either do for themselves, but they can also do with their children as well. The next slide.
I was going to jump in, Thomas. I heard a great life hack the other day. I'm sad I hadn't thought of it in the 11 years that my son's been alive, but it was actually from a dad. He said, I'm going to take the hit and I'm going to do the grocery shopping. And I think it was speaking to that guilt-free time, but he actually was doing online grocery shopping, and his wife obviously knew, but the kids thought he was going to do the full grocery shop. So he was actually just going to click and collect, but took the whole hour to have a coffee, go to the gym, have his time, and then do the quick online click and collect. I was like, that's brilliant.
Genius. Yeah, that is a great life hack. And I think getting together like this is
two things there.
yeah,
My youngest son actually does take his son doing the grocery shopping every weekend.
fantastic.
That's
He's
great.
going to be 2 in January. But I listened to the radio, talkback radio, and last weekend in Sydney we had the marathon, and there was one father who was going to run, and he's actually got his whole family now into running as a family hobby. So sometimes what your passion is, you can possibly put onto your children, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to be something new.
I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely a great opportunity to invite your children into what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And that actually raised a really important piece is the way in which that can move fluidly between you and your children. So something that you're passionate about, they join, but then we're often asked, how do I do more stuff with my kids? And we kind of share in Dad's group. We're like, fine, like have a think about what your kid's doing, what's your child doing, and then join in with that. And I guess I'm probably again speaking to the converted here, but really having that child-led, that play, and just championing that. Like if it's Duplo or Lego, or if it's running, or if it's maybe babies just blobbing around on the mellow mat. And that's another one. If you haven't got a mat at home, often, I don't want to be too gender stereotypes, but often dads like to get down on the ground. If you've got a really soft mat, we bought a mat called, I think, a mellow mat a few years ago. And our kids were, quite a bit older. Yet now we find ourselves always lying on this mat, playing Lego on this mat, connecting on this mat, and it's an exceptionally soft mat. Strange thing, I know, but we're in the business of setting up situations for people to succeed, and that's a great example of framing out the space, so the space will actually deliver some of the natural outcomes from having the things set up well. So that's another consideration for setting up connection with your child. Dads and mental health, you're not alone. Common emotional challenges in parenthood. This is one where I think it's, if you're, I've just got to give a disclaimer. I'm going to talk about some stuff that is, might touch on some challenging areas. We had a father come and connect with us, and he shared about trauma, his vicarious trauma, and then another father wanted us to unpack and explain what vicarious trauma was. For those of you who know, then you'll know that vicarious trauma is, and I'm probably not doing it great justice, the definition, but essentially someone else has had a traumatic or a seemingly traumatic experience, and you've gone through a traumatic experience because you've seen someone else go through it. For me, the birth of one of my children, that was me experiencing trauma vicariously. So that was something that I was unaware of at the time, and even years later didn't really understand. And I guess probably that's behind the reason why I started up Dad's group and Man with the Pram, because I was looking for ways to actually address and understand what was going on in me. Now, vicarious trauma can have different impacts on different people, but the exciting thing that I can see is that if you are able to share this message with fathers and mothers, but in our line of work, it's particularly identifying people who have no support in this particular space. If you can share what vicarious trauma is and some of your experience from a lived experience, then people can start to think, oh, I might have symptoms of that as well. So I'm not going to share too deeply about it, but sometimes in the birth, some of the things that happen in birth can be really complex and challenging, causing an instant kind of body reaction. So you're triggered by it, so to speak. And the challenging thing is vicarious. Oh my goodness, that's the hardest thing you've asked me. How do you spell vicarious? I'm going to just handball that over to Emily, who's going to Google it and then say it online or spell it. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. So the challenging thing about vicarious trauma is that it can actually inhibit or stop or create a glass ceiling to some of your relationships. And if that happens between you and your infant or you and your partner, then you've got a blocker on a nurturing environment that you're trying to create for a human that you might be angry at. Now that's really challenging. It's really, really challenging. But if you can know what it is and share what it is and normalize what it is for dads and for mums, then you've got an opportunity to really work through that. So in the example we had that I was sharing before, the dad heard about it. He came back and shared that he has gone off on his own journey to actually address that in his life. And he actually was able to share that he now has a better and closer relationship with his child and his partner than he ever had before. And by dealing with that or working through that over a period of months, he's now really proud to have this closer relationship with his partner and with his child. For me, that is one of the richest things anyone could give anyone. So if you're wanting to help someone, to be able to help them through their relationship and the complexities of their relationships at home is something that it's worth more than gold. So I highlight that as an example because it's in our spaces around parenting as fathers, we sometimes don't know what's going on and what bubbles up out of the surface, over the surface. There's often some deeper things happening underneath. So being able to slow down and have a safe space to talk about those more complex things, especially when you don't know what they are, is something that will really, if you're invested, it will really lead you to some beautiful outcomes that can really change the way that you interact with your family, and you can be, I guess, the best version of yourself. And for me, in different elements of my journey over the last 11 years of fathering, some of the things that I've worked through have taken months and some of them have taken years. So it's about slowing down and appreciating that this is slow work around mental health, and you don't need to rush through it. But there is help out there, and there's specific pathways towards support. And if you have the time to slow down, there is an opportunity there awaiting. So I just really wanted to stop there. If anyone wants to ask anything about that or share anything about that, I really welcome that. But I think the important thing to do in this space is to reflect, slow down, realize that there's actually quite a lot of expert help. And as I was speaking to someone just this week, we know people who vicarious trauma is their day-to-day support activity. That's what they do. They're experts in it. So it's just normal. For your biggest problem in the world is just normal for someone else, and they can walk you through it. and that should, if it should, like it did for me, gave me a lot of peace and was able to work through my stuff slowly and effectively and be proud of who I am on the other side.
Hi, Thomas. My name's Daniel. I was going to introduce myself before, but I had a poo in the toilet bath that I had to sort out. So, this rigorous trauma, is that go on for years without knowing, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan, and I'm not an expert enough to be able to answer if it does, but what I can say, it doesn't have to if it can be addressed. Like all types of trauma, I guess the first step would be working out a pathway to an expert that will help you navigate through that. So, I was just chatting to my father before, and I think we were talking about trauma as well. And we thought that some of the elements in some of our families' lives were reflective of trauma incidents that had impacts for years, to answer your question. So I think it very much can. So if it's not dealt with, then if it just sits there, and again, another conversation I had earlier this week is men pouring concrete over their emotions to be able to cope with what they're doing. And in one of the dads groups, one of the dads was sharing how his wife said, sometimes it's like a volcano is about to erupt and he's like trying to stop it from erupting. And I think, to your question, yeah, if we learn to suppress and push down this stuff, it does create a heightened risk for those around us, the people that we love. And it takes so much strength to own, I'm going to use a swear word, but to own our own shit. It takes so much strength to do that. But when we do, you actually, I guess, the power of connecting with others who are doing that as well is really exceptional. And then in doing so, often you find your people, so to speak, and that's where you journey with each other around that shared parenting journey, and you learn what authenticity is in living your full self. So there's some really cool stuff there, and if that resonates with anyone, I really encourage you to explore it in a really safe way with a safe friend. And if you don't have a safe friend, then I really encourage you to reach out to Panda or 4When and have a chat with them about what you're going through, because these are they're colleagues of mine who run these organizations, and they're exceptional in their care, and they're exceptional in their navigating us through to various supports.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate the share. The next slide. Yeah, this one's around managing stress and overwhelm, and I think it kind of links quite closely to what we were talking about before. One of the key things around stress and overwhelm is to understand that stress can be a constant thing, like a layer of constant stress, but then overwhelm is when it's all too much. And this one of the things that was helpful for me, and again, this is not me telling you how to do parenting, but sharing my lived experience. For me, I was needing to learn how to communicate where I was at with my kids. 78 times telling them to go to bed, that's too much, or 23 times is too much. But you don't want to snap on 24th time. So how do you do that? How do you actually communicate that to the people that you love in a way where you got to have healthy boundaries, but at the same time you need to communicate where you are. So I use a traffic light methodology, which I kind of pulled from my corporate background in BHP around project management. We had a traffic light dashboard, but essentially I was saying it's in the green. I'm asking you to go to bed now, go to sleep now, and I love you, and all these types of things, and all the lovely connection bits that you have the capacity for, where you got your buckets full, and then and you might get your often the thirstiest a child ever is when the light goes out. I've heard that recently. I need a drink of water. So I think you allow for that, but then after that, I was able to communicate to the children as they keep getting out of bed that this is I'm now in the orange. and I can manage in the orange. I really don't want to get to the red, but you know, I'm asking you firmly to do this. So again, this may not be relevant for you with really young kids. However, there are some learnings there that are replicable for regardless of the age of child. So it's about communicating, maybe not to your child, but maybe to your partner where you're at. Because that's another thing in the parenting journey. If you can work as a team in that space and acknowledge that being in the orange is a risk factor, and the other person, if they're in the green, then you can do a handball and tap out, because we've all been to the red before and gone too far. And that's something that we're not proud of. But there are ways you can slow down and manage and build that out of how you as a family operate. And that again is slow work. It's not apply a methodology for success. It's apply and fail, share and learn, talk about it, see how you can do it again, and that kind of, you know, iterative process. Realistic expectations is key here, as you all know. And then, yeah, there's that communication with your partner and your family around where you're at. It's not all, yeah, I'm not proud of who I am some days, and I'm sure that you're the same. But I am proud of being able to get better and work better with my family. And in doing that, showing that vulnerability to them, I've actually seen them, even the children, demonstrate those behaviors while sharing things that they're not so proud of and that they want to work on. And I've watched, you know, my son, who's now 6 years old, who reacts or has reacted in the past, you know, really in a way that he's not proud of and I'm not proud of. But in showing that I have things that I'm not proud of and that I'm working on it, has allowed him to see that it's okay to have things you're not proud of and to work on them as well. So that's just a key piece around the work that we do, is vulnerability of the right people who love you and trust you, so that vulnerability doesn't get squashed. But also leading with that example and going, hey, I am human, and part of being human is a bit messy, and then being able to work through that mess together. And then we've found that in doing that, you're deepening your relationship. You have a far more rich and authentic kind of connection with the people that you love, and it's just more rewarding. And rather than, I guess, in the past, running away from what I wasn't good at, it was facing what I wasn't good at, and being able to engage with these people and work through that journey as well. The next slide. Now we get into the fun bit, and I think I've got to do a time check as well, because how are we going? We may not get through all the slides, and that's okay. But just before we play this video, is there anyone that wanted to connect on any of the issues or discussion points before, that wanted to share something? I really appreciate the sharing. It really helps us, you know that you're on the same page, or you can share a relevant experience. Go, Alex.
I use 1, 2, 3 Magic with my children, who are 34 and 32, and I use the same with my grandchildren, and it's amazing how they don't like being on the timeout step, but they cope with that, and we do get results.
Did you want to talk to us about what 1, 2, 3 Magic is for those of us?
I think it's still out there. I'm not sure. My daughter-in-law says it is, but you do 1 and then you do 2, and then 3 is you put them in a safe space. And like with Henricus, he's going to be 3 in November, so I put him on the step for 1 minute, and that's sufficient. So you kind of like fudge it. Sometimes it's 1, 2, and then very, very long 3, but it does seem to work very well for me. And it's, even though it's old school, it's still that same, and he's starting to learn what it means and doesn't want to go on the timeout step. So yeah. And sometimes when I did it with my own children, they just need to get away from the situation. They don't need to be disciplined. They just need time. Even if it's in their bedroom playing, it's not a bad thing just to move them from the situation. So therefore, everybody can just calm down.
Yeah, Dan again, my experience is like, so my wife works nights, so bedtimes are like crying for mum. I've found like their favorite toy. So like, for example, my son, he likes Grover. I just tell him to like cuddle Grover really tightly, and Mum will feel it. So that kind of calms him down a bit. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think like that's exactly what we're talking about. It's finding what works for you and finding what works for your child, and then having those stories that are meaningful to you, and be able to build on that. And these are the things, same with one of mine that they had their little bunny, and their bunny was really precious. And that there was times when you couldn't give everything that the child needed, but the bunny was there, and that was it was sufficient. And I think that understand those little life hacks and sharing them. They're actually little bits of magic for mums and dads who are struggling with the same thing that just hadn't heard that life hack before. So I think that piece around community and connection is really powerful. The next slide, or the next piece we're going to see, was Man with a Pram, which is exciting because this Father's Day we're launching Man with a Pram in a big way across 50 or over 50 different events. Oh, it looks like you've got it ready to go. You can play that. Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to show that just to highlight, Man with a Pram is just a really simple, I guess, way to engage. It's fun. It's you connect with grandparents, parents. It can be 3 people or 20 people, doesn't really matter. But it's, as you could see, there was a high level of engagement of fathers in that space, and it was invitational. It felt like, that was a place where fathers, belonged in that space. Now, it may not be for more than, we might not have to do this type of thing for 20 years. Maybe we're normal in 20 years for dads to be equally involved in parenting as mums. But regardless, the systems don't really set us up to be connected in that space. So that's why Man with a Pram is a really fun event. And we've got, I'll just do a shameless plug for it. We've got a whole bunch of playgroups that are doing Man with the Prams in New South Wales this year, which is really exciting. And if you're part of one of those, then we really encourage you to go along and invite some families that you might know, invite grandparents into that space. That intergenerational, walking is a place where people can partake in your playgroup experience for, one day of the year that they may not otherwise. And also just to celebrate fathers on Father's Day as that positive role model. I work with the Australian Fatherhood Research Consortium, and there's incredible amounts of research for decades backwards, looking at the overwhelming impact on a child's life that a father brings. It's really interesting, and I can't explain why fathers have such a huge impact. Whether it's a father who is present or a father who is absent, isn't what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the size of the impact of the paternal.
But Emily's still at work.
Hello?
Oh no, that's a fake background.
Oh, I think we've got there's someone accidentally unmuted. Yeah, so I was just mentioning before that unexplainable impact of a father, whether the father's present or not. And I share this with new fathers in the antenatal class because I'm not there to explain why that is the case, but I'm explaining that the research demonstrates that, and therefore there's an opportunity or a responsibility, however you want to look at it, for fathers to be involved with the raising of their children. And that's not, excuse me, It's not no pressure to be the best dad in the world, but it is an invitation to define what you want that to look like, so that you don't, just let life happen. Because if you do let life happen, as you know, it's like kind of leaving your garden to look after itself, or your lounge room to clean itself. It doesn't really work. It gets messy pretty quickly. So having an intentional plan for how you're going to do fatherhood is something that we're really passionate about at Dad's Group, and also journeying with a bunch of people who want to do that. So yeah, that was Man with the Pram. If you're not walking already, please register to walk. It's manwiththepram.com. And yeah, get out there. And if you're not near one of the walks as well, there's one also in Sydney at the Botanic Gardens. And there's a number of different walks all over New South Wales and Australia. We've now got one, I believe, that just popped up in Iceland, of all places, and Germany and the UK and America. So it's a really fun way of engaging on Father's Day and connecting. We believe that prevention of family violence, suicide, and poor childhood development outcomes begins with building villages, safe villages, as very much in line with playgroups, the philosophies of playgroups, which are really those villages to raise the child, which is really exciting. There we go. If you're in Parramatta or Rose Hill area, we have two. Message dropped. Sounds like we have two happening with playgroups in the area. Fantastic. Thanks, Jess. The next slide.
Can I just add something to that too, Thomas?
Yeah,
my husband always had a very corporate job, and that's hence I could stay at home. But he always said to me, it's not quantity, Alex, it's quality. And I think sometimes we think the more time we spend with the children, the better it's going to be. But it can't always be like that. It has to be make the time you've got with them good.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really, really great. And I think there's enough guilt already in the parenting paradigm than to add more to that. But it's really the making the most of what you've got. And there is a huge, spectrum of fathers who have and can be involved with their kids based on a whole number of different complex issues. But you're right, it's about making the most of what you got. And making, I actually, when I was going through some stuff a few years ago, I wrote down a note that popped up on my phone, that, I think every day, and it was, your children won't remember what you say, they'll remember how you make them feel. And that was so challenging to me, because I could say the right things, but I'd felt like I wasn't bringing in the right feelings. And that was, yeah, I've gone on a process of self-reflection, and now I'm really working hard to make them feel, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection. And I'm working on that. I find it easier to deliver rational behavioral application type scenarios, but however, slowing myself down and going, it's okay. Now let's think about how they're going to feel. And that's been one that really has been rewarding for me in my life, and my relationship with my kids and my wife as well, and all my relationships. And that's probably another thing to highlight, is when you start doing this work and this slow work, it has really great repercussions positively throughout the rest of all your relationships. And that's a really exciting thing to do. And your kids are going to be the ones that benefit the most, because they're the most, the ones who are developing their brains and their hearts the most. So that's really exciting. Next, we're talking about the power of play, and I think we've probably only got 2 minutes left, so we may not get through all the slides. I'm sorry. But the cool thing about power of play, and I can't say his name, but Dr. Ramchar, Emily, can you help me out? Dr. Richard Ramchardi from the UK is known as the Lego professor. And he does some really cool stuff and highlights that fathers do bring a new or a different element to play. And I think one time at the Australian Fatherhood Research Symposium, he spoke with us around highlighting the benefits of dads and play. And I think that's something that we can really work on in terms of how do we engage dads in these spaces and help us to feel like we're actually really, really good at this. I think most fathers have had the experience where they've realized they're not good at clothing their children in the past. Now, that's there's a funny side of that, but there's also a serious side of that. And I mean, the funny side of that is that, I get, told that my daughter doesn't look really good in those clothes, or looks a bit silly, or, she's wearing odd socks, of which I'm a real big advocate for. Odd socks, I think, is really cool. But the flip side of that is if that happens over and over again, I actually start to feel like I'm not actually very good at the parenting stuff. And so being able to, years later unpack that with my wife and go, oh, that doesn't make me feel like I have capability in that area. They're really important things to be able to share when the time is right with your partner, because being able to support each other to be the best version of themselves, and also highlight what each other brings. And it might be mum who brings the play in your relationship. It might not be dad. It might be that you bring something that's unique, but it's around highlighting that piece that you bring that's unique, that can really validate, when you're co-parenting the other parent in that space. And then for the dads who are looking to engage but can't, we in the antenatal class talk about singing and connecting with your baby in utero, because there's research to demonstrate that the dad's voice for the child is recognizable after the child is birthed, because of the work and the connection they've done in utero, which is just a fascinating and cool concept. Also a little bit weird, but it's really cool. And so, yeah, being able to create a space, and that's why I mentioned the mellow mat before. Rough and tumble play is a great thing. I know that my son really enjoys, and my daughters really enjoy, safe rough and tumble play. And it's something that I've realized helps them regulate, and helps them understand their boundaries as well, which is babies recognize voice from 22 weeks usually. There you go. So yeah, and I think I do remember, I can't find it, but I can remember some research that demonstrated that a baby's response to the father, which was really amazing. The next slide. Has anyone's got any comments on the power of play? Please do share. I'd love to hear your voices coming through. If there's someone else who hasn't shared yet and you're just on the precipice of maybe sharing and just thinking, hey, I could share that, please do, because connecting with you is, the spirit of what we're doing with Dad's Group and in Playgroup is sharing that journey.
Just a quick question in the chat. Thomas, just about, have you had experience with fathers from diverse backgrounds? This writer has said in their role, needing to encourage them to understand the importance of play and their role in their child's development, where there's diverse backgrounds and different understandings.
Yeah. Now, interesting question, because there definitely has been a lot of different diverse backgrounds. So there's culturally and linguistically diverse groups, Vietnamese dads groups. There's different types of ethnicity in terms of the breakdown. A whole bunch of different diverse fathers come to Dad's Group, and I think that for us, it's normalizing who you are and your identity as a father, and then being able to share that journey together and highlight that different groups of fathers and families have different needs at different times. And I think especially when there's a situation where children have higher emotional needs or complex needs. We've done some work, and we're doing some work with dads where those children do have some really complex needs, and unifying them to be able to share that journey is really powerful. In that same piece around vicarious trauma I shared before, when you share, you resonate with someone else's journey, there's a connection there, a bond that goes really deep. And in that deep space, often trust is developed. And in that space of trust, you find often a lot of healing. Doesn't often fix everything, but it helps you heal through it and have a perspective that's really more helpful for it. So really encouraging, that intentionality of fathers with different diverse backgrounds to, see both sides of the coin. One, which is universal, and see that we're unified with our differences. And then the other piece to see, I actually have some needs myself, to be able to connect with someone who shares some of those needs and challenges. So that's a really great question.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry. My name's Jo. I'm from Dubbo in Western New South Wales.
Yay.
And I work with a play group. We had 60 people at Playgroup on Monday at the Bunnings Sack. And then today we had a bunch of dads and granddads who are called, so none of them speak English, but they bring their little babies to playgroup as well. So I get to be a playgroup person. I did have at one stage 5 kids in my home at once. I'm a foster carer, so complex family shape. And so the other thing I get to do is I'm a my time coordinator for Playgroups New South Wales as well here. So I get to host families whose children have diagnoses. And the fourth thing that I just wanted to add was I'm married to an islander, and so I've got a culturally diverse family as well. And I just wanted to encourage anybody that's hanging out with him that aren't necessarily the same shape as yours, which technically is everybody, but when we are with families from other countries, we really need to be in a place of curiosity so that we can understand more of where they're coming from, because there's a lot of stuff underneath expectations and just this idea about what your family shape should look like, but what they're missing as well. And I think that's the biggest thing for us when we're supporting families in WA. We have 35% of our population is called, and so our shape has changed a lot. And these people have come to Australia with they're missing stuff. They're missing grandparents. They're missing all that extra support. And so if when we're forming those groups, which I think are amazing, my husband and I run a mental health organisation in town as well. And so we are the people that you come to for vicarious trauma chats as well. So just being able to be curious to find out what might be missing from their lives to support them well would be a really a vital way to be part of that village. That's all.
Thank you so much for that, Joanna. A lot in there, and I think if I can round that out by having an approach which is, caring first, that caring first approach, which is, all the stuff that we do really comes back to actually caring for people, looking at them, listening to them, and caring for them where they're at with what they've got, not judging them for who they are or what their past looks like or what their the build up of the different elements that make them who they are, but just being there for them. And I think that's something that's super powerful, is leading with care as a fundamental, and everything after that, if you open the door with care, then everything else just flows. And because a caring approach will help people find a pathway they're looking for. A caring approach will listen to someone when they need to be listened to. A caring approach will guide someone to a community that's near them, that they can find ongoing support. Our role isn't to fix people or continue to journey with them beyond what we can do, but it is to care and then find boundaries for where we need to stop caring and hand that care over to others in a really safe and loving approach. And I think for us, that's the foundation of what we do. We rock up to, really sensitive midwifery spaces with an approach that we care first, and we want to work with you, and we want to learn from you, and we want to be the best that we can be so that the dads can be the best that they can be with what they have. And I think it's really special to hear, the different kind of experience you've had, Joe, there, and just normalize that as, almost everyone has that level of need. And so if we can take care as a first line approach and slowing down, then we're in good company. Now, I'm not sure if we've got. I think we're over time, aren't we? Have we?
Yeah, we are 8:08.
Yeah, sorry,
But it's been wonderful.
I don't know what other slides I've got. I have to just double check. Oh, there's a couple more. Maybe we can share them just in the follow-up links. But there's a video of Will doing a man with a pram walk, and then there's tips from the trenches. But essentially, and there's a QR code to scan to connect with Dad's group as well. But it's been really wonderful to share with you guys. It's really been even better to have you sharing with us your lived experience, etc. And yeah, if anyone has any final questions, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, Emily, I'll hand back to you.
We can't see the last couple of slides, no?
So
if you'd like to stay on, well, I'm sure we can flick through them. Those that do need to go up to you, Thomas. You're presenting. We could do a couple more minutes if we want to see the slides. We will send out the slide pack to everyone that's attended as well. Straight after, and we've got the survey. And Joe, just to reiterate, I was at Thomas, that was the group I was telling you. So I was at the playgroup in Dubbo on Monday, and it was amazing seeing, that was what I was saying, it's probably one of the few playgroups I've gone to where it was almost 50% dads and granddads and things, so it was incredible. And this is the first, I think I can see a thing in the chat that you can listen to this longer, and any others that Thomas presents. This is the first of many conversations, yarns, interactions online. We'd love to do in-person events as well, build a better resource library. Obviously, you've seen me furiously putting things in the chat, anything that we can do to help dads on the journey. And I think there's a lot that's sticking with me, Thomas, but what I really loved is your phrasing around, it's our job to set up situations for parents, all parents, to succeed, but coming at it from that curiosity lens, to steal your bit, Joe, and just kindness, care, compassion. We're all in this together. I really liked that approach. So thank you. We will send the slides out, Alexandra. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And last but not least, happy Father's Day ahead of Sunday, in whatever form that might take for you. Yeah, celebrate you. It's deserved. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you again very soon. We'll send out lots of info, and we can also send out the links that I put in the chat. If you didn't manage to get them, we'll put them in a document.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you again, and have a great Father's Day walk if you're walking. And if you're not walking, get out there and walk. You've got no excuse. It's going to be fun. Even if there's bad weather, go for a walk. Walk with your child, walk with your nan, walk with your neighbor. Make the most of it, and yeah, enjoy. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.